We never plan this stuff. It just all kind of flows out.
Yeah, that worked out really well.
What we say to each other cannot be divisive.
Gosh, I just think that when we get so focused on walking the line and just miss so much of God's creativity.
We only created the Odd Show to have this conversation.
Right.
We're gonna say some bad things about stuff.
If you're not bad things like,
If you're a huge Toby Mac fan,
turn it off now.
For people who are struggling with why would a God of the universe care about me individually, you are his favorite. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is The Odd Show. Let's get right into it. Here's your hosts, Bruce Bugano and Thomas Hogan.
All right, hey, welcome to The Odd Show.
The G is silent.
The G is silent. I'm Bruce Thomas. So where are we? We're in Clearfield?
I think we're in Clearfield, Layton-ish.
Okay, so we're in Utah. Kind of Ogden-ish, Clearfield, Layton-ish area. But we're at this place called Soda Science, where they mix sodas. I mean, it's
Like a science.
It's like an old soda shop, but not. And so this is the first time. This is the Dr. Pepper. It's a Moon Mule.
Sure.
And it's
Stuff. Different flavors.
Dr. Pepper, cream, guava, orange. And I've never tasted it before. So This is me. Tastes like a Dr. Pepper creamsicle. And it's pretty legit. No, it's pretty good. I like that.
Good.
Digging that. So shout out to Soda Science if you're in the Layton Clearfield area of Utah. Go check out Soda Science. They got a huge board, menu board. So anyway, cool joint. So
Been away for a while.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of weeks since we put out an actual
episode.
full episode.
Yeah. And since then, actually, we still have. I do want to shout out our last. We did a video a couple weeks ago, but prior to that, we had Meg Delagrange on.
Right.
And I just want to point out.
I saw your wife's a reveal, her open.
Yeah.
Her box
She did
unboxing.
an unboxing of a Urban Southern
It's quite good.
crossbody wallet, and I just wanted to point out that episode's still up. And that there is still an active promo code in there for 15% off your order at
Guys.
Urban Southern.
Guys, get your ladies
Yeah.
a very nice bag, or girls, get your guys. Or guys, get your friends.
Yeah.
Or do whatever you like.
Do what you like, but just use the promo code at the end of that episode, and I think it's episode 57. So make sure you check that out. It's still active code through December 31st, so there's plenty of time. So even if Christmas comes and your lady opens her present and she's just like, "Aw," and it's one of those like, "Oh, you shouldn't have," and I mean,
you shouldn't have.
you shouldn't have done this.
Anytime
'cause
someone
this
says
is
they
not-
shouldn't have, I shouldn't have,
They-
I never see that as a good thing.
right,
I
Like-
always associate it with maybe I shouldn't have.
right, like maybe they actually mean I shouldn't have bought this for them. So then you have 6 more days before the promo code runs out, and you
Right.
can be like, no, it's coming in the mail.
Urban Southern, awesome
Yeah.
stuff.
So check it out
Never can give a big enough shout out to the people that come on the show and talk.
and do stuff. All the,
Anyway, we
all
can
the
get
stuff
back.
that they're doing.
We're not paying them to do interviews,
No.
so obviously.
No, they're not. We're not getting any money from.
So it'd be great if they got something out of it,
Yeah,
other than just us getting something out of it.
and they're not paying us to like promo this. They're because they're awesome people, and they're like, hey, do this. So we get no kickback. We should start getting kickbacks.
I know. We're for sale.
Oh yeah, no, we
Highest,
are.
to the highest and
Yeah.
the lowest
And-
bidder.
and we will say
any bidder.
We'll say anything you want us to say.
Apostasy, not a problem for us.
Yeah, it's just the internet. It's not forever. Anyway, so we're going to talk about. So this last week, and I want to preface this by saying
We preface a lot of things
Right.
on the show. Listen, we know something bad's about to happen. So let me preface the bad thing that's about to happen that's going to come out of my mouth with another thing that makes it not as bad.
right, and I don't even know if this.
I
will
would
make
say
it
that's
out of it.
I challenge anyone to look back on the last 20 episodes and find something we didn't preface.
A single episode that's not prefaced by something.
Let me preface. Let me start out by saying,
I do want to say, though, that we're going to talk about this specific pastor.
oh, a person. Yeah.
A person, because he's in the news. We're going to say his name.
As rappers say, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Or your favorite pastor's favorite pastor.
Right. And this is not... We're not going to disparage him, or the topic of the conversation is not whether or not we should be allowed to talk about this stuff publicly, and it's not
we did a show about whether you can call out pastors, whether you can call out pastors or not.
Right. And I still think,
and an updating post of continuous comments because of it.
Right. So we're going to talk about him, but it's not a disparaging thing. It's just so Perry Noble.
I don't have anything bad to say about him. Anyway.
No, I don't have anything bad to say about him.
I don't know him.
Perry Noble is back in the news, and if you're not sure who Perry Noble is, he's a mega church pastor. You can Google him.
You can Wikipedia him, actually. He's got quite the following.
Yeah, totally. Huge church out in North Carolina, I think it is. But about a year ago, I think it's almost been.
Yeah, we did a show on it about a year ago.
Yeah. He was fired from the church that he planted like 14, 15 years ago. It might have been longer than that, maybe 2 decades. It was in the 90s.
It's a long time,
I think. But fired from the church that he planted, that he was the lead pastor at, for alcoholism, for
being belligerent and coming to work.
But essentially, it was
in
like
a state of
his
less than coherency.
Disheveledness.
He grew a 6 o'clock shadow, which is a no-no in the church world.
Right.
It's goatee, full-on beard, or nothing.
Soul patch.
Your soul patch.
If you're a worship leader.
You don't get this weird stubble weekend thing I've got going on.
With your hair in disarray. So, there was just like, are you into science? Have you not... Are you figuring out the theory of relativity again? Come on, man.
What are you doing?
So anyway, he was fired from his position. He had been pretty open about dealing with depression. Pretty soon after that, and I say pretty soon, like it was like 6-7 months after
Sometime after that.
He had, but it was under a year, and he had filed paperwork to plant another church. And
he didn't take the full 2 years off like Driscoll did.
Right.
He didn't regroup.
I don't think Driscoll even took 2 years before he started speaking again.
No, yeah, he spoke, but he didn't want to jump back into the pastorate right away because he's got that other church now.
Right, in Arizona. So he, I
want to find a good template for when I fail. When I either morally or societally fail, I need a good template to follow. Like, okay, if I do these things, I need like a training class. Right. That'd be a beneficial thing to get all these pastors.
Oh, like an online course?
These mega church pastors who have like dipped. We need to like have them like do like a breakout session. Here's what my PR guys did for me.
Right. Here's your plan of attack.
If that tells you anything about where this is going.
It actually has nothing to do with where it's going. It does have a little to do with it. Anyway, but the point being that he puts in paperwork to plant this other church. In a time frame that some would say was maybe not enough time, maybe who knows. He was speaking again, and then this last week, shows up in the news that he's filing for divorce from his wife,
which was probably in the running. That probably was.
Yeah,
this week.
Yeah,
is when
they were separated.
Right. This week is when it broke, but that's probably been in the works for some time.
Sure. So that kind of got me asking the question, maybe too soon?
Maybe too soon.
Maybe take a little bit more time? And
maybe.
And so we're having this discussion, and like, I don't want to pretend that I know that whether or not there's a specific amount of time that you should take, but maybe 6 months after you get fired for alcoholism, is not a good time to.
I mean, if you know anything,
plant a church, and then after that, all of a sudden you're getting divorced. Like maybe they're maybe jumping back into the thing that got you to the thing that quickly.
You think Christianity made him?
No,
Or like running the show made him
I think that probably had some because he
contributing factor.
self-admitted. I mean, like he said,
He said
like
the church is the reason this is happening.
the amount of stress and leadership.
Oh,
he didn't
yeah,
have community,
leadership,
like
yeah.
he didn't
No,
have
I agree.
accountability, which some would argue that he did. Elders telling him like,
Right. You weren't.
but I mean, like
you
he's-
weren't single-handedly running the church, were you?
He's made those points that like it was just a lot of pressure. He'd already struggled with depression. That it was his way of he was self-medicating, like
Okay,
and gotten to this point. So maybe not jump back into the thing that did the thing to you, right? Like where they got you that was a contributing factor to that place that you ended up.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to know what was going on in his marriage, but
Probably not a lot of good stuff if
right,
it ended in divorce.
right.
Most
So-
people that are like, things aren't that bad, things are working out, don't typically get divorced. People that are like, this is bad enough not to be with you anymore.
Right.
That's typically the direction divorce
I don't know if
goes.
his wife was the one that was like, I'm out, but he filed for divorce. So, like, there's some indication there, I'm sure.
So
that-
I have a lot of concerns with what you're saying.
Right.
One
With the way I'm saying it?
No.
Or about the topic in
the
general?
topic in general.
Because I have a lot of concerns about the way I say things, too. And a lot of other people
I have
have
some
concerns about the way
So take away the name Perry Noble.
Right.
Just some random guy who was running a ministry.
Some rando. Got
Some
it.
rando running a ministry,
Got
right?
it.
Rando, Pastor Rando, we'll call him.
Okay.
So Pastor Rando is running this ministry.
Not to be confused with Pastor Randy down
and
the street. Not that guy.
he gets overwhelmed
Okay.
with the pressures of ministry and life and family and all of that. Turns to alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever.
Yeah,
turns to something to alleviate these pressures, right?
Sure.
And tries to hide it for a long time or tries to keep it at least under control. And then eventually gets caught, eventually gets exposed for whatever reason, gets exposed that this is an ailment. This is a detraction from the ministry that he's actively and successfully doing. Right? So I asked that person, we asked that person to step away from leadership, to work on themselves, to focus on the purposes of God and that their own heart be clear. Because we talk a lot about in GCC and in the Odd Show, we talk about heart space, home space, life space, right?
Yep.
And like, we want your heart space to be good. And then we want your home space to be good so that your life space will be good, right? If I do that, I think that I want to cater to that by putting around you some accountability, some strong people, and then hopefully getting you to a place where you're okay.
Right.
And then, and always with the goal, like we've said since the beginning of knowing each other in ministry, always with the goal of restoration. Always with the goal of, man, God has more for you in the future than he does now, than he had in the past. Like God's always trying to grow you and push
Keeping
you.
in mind that
steady
the most
your
important
influence.
thing. Keeping in mind that the most important thing that God's doing in your life is right now.
Right.
Like
not like in the future, not in the past.
The thing that you're gonna do is not the biggest thing that will happen in your life.
Yeah, the thing that's happening
compared
right now.
to what's happening right now.
And that's why you need accountability
right
now. That's why you need help and sources of hope right now, not later on. Or not eventually when you get there, but you need that stuff right now. And so my concern is that Pastor Rando is not getting that when within a year, I'm giving you back another ministry that could be as successful. Maybe not. It won't start out that way, but you're going to have people that are followers from that other ministry anyway. Well, that have the potential to be just as successful, just as pressure filled, and the circumstances around you may have changed. So maybe you have accountability now. Maybe you're going to you've been actively involved in a 12-step program and it's revolutionized the way you see ministry and life and Jesus and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And so I'm all for that. Except maybe I don't set you up for failure by throwing you back into it. Give you time to heal. I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the church or the pastorate or the huge following that this person has. I'm very concerned about that person, though.
Right. So, a little bit of difference though between Pastor Rando and Pastor Noble.
Okay. I was trying to make them the same
Pastor
person.
Perry. But a little bit, but I mean, because you can have that conversation about Pastor Rando down the street that that leads a 500-person congregation.
Right.
You can't. It's a different conversation when you're talking about somebody that has a 30,000-person congregation over multiple campuses.
No, I hear you. I hear you there.
And you're a celebrity on a lot of levels, and you can come back 5 months in, and your podcast is still up here,
Millions,
and you're still, you know what I'm saying, like you're.
No,
like,
I got you.
Your ability to Pastor Rando a year from the date of his fall, if you will, may not be able to plant a ministry, may be able to kind of ease his way back into doing ministry.
Right, be an
a year later,
like be
right?
Associate pastor somewhere or something.
Perry
like
Noble can't.
Right. He's going to run.
In.
He's going to run a full church.
He will launch this church, and it will
immediately have followers.
Yeah, just for the sake.
True.
I mean, and so like the story.
I'm saying the principle is the same for me.
Right.
I'm concerned that Perry Noble's heart space. Now this is because probably it's a theological thing with me, how it unfolds. Your heart space is good. Your home space is good. Your life space is good. Because his heart space isn't good, his home space isn't good, and therefore his life space is not. His public space.
And
is
these
not
aren't even
be
making like.
I'm not making assumptions.
It's not even conjecture. It's the fact that there's something wrong in your heart. Like, so one of his big things is, and he said this, I think, at Bevan Murtick's church. When he
just
spoke
keep
there.
making new names for him every time.
Yeah, I forgot what we called him.
I like it.
But he had said, made this. Was telling the story about how he was at this point of suicide, and he was just done. He didn't want to be here anymore, and he was walking. I think he was walking on the beach. I think that's where God talks to people.
That's where he talks to Chan. But Chan's like out.
Chan.
He's surfing, and God's like, by the way,
oh, man,
fix everything.
He's like, dang it, I will do that. I'm going to go to Asia and fix the world. Whatever, Chan. Do what you do in San Francisco. Save people.
Make disciples that make disciples.
Yeah.
Plant churches that plant churches. I don't care what you do.
I don't care what you do, Chan.
Let's get back to Perry.
Anyway.
Let's get back to Noble.
I don't have disdain for Chan. I like him. Chan! But he had said something effective, like God had said that, or God, he was at that point and God had said, I'm not done with you yet. And that was his indication that I need to plant a church. I'm back in the ministry.
I'm all for you hearing from God. I'm all for everybody
maybe
hearing what God has to say.
Maybe
take more than a verse. Ask for more than a verse.
Right.
I need more than a verse. I need more than Jesus wept. I need some contextual clues. Some contextual clues.
Because to me, contextually, that could mean a lot of different things. Like, don't kill yourself.
I'm not done with you yet.
Right. I'd like you to be on earth.
You think you've suffered so far? Just wait.
Or it could mean that. I didn't even think about that. Like, he's like,
if that would be, if God said that to me, that would be the first thing. My first conclusion would be like, oh no, it gets worse.
Things are going to suck.
It gets worse. Ow.
That's a good point.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying. I don't know.
And maybe that's.
I don't know.
That's where we find ourselves.
I'm not the Holy Spirit guy, so I don't know.
Anyway, point being that maybe too soon.
Maybe too soon.
Maybe too soon.
And really, for his own heart's sake, I think that it is easy for us as people. Me personally, right? I feel this call to ministry, right? I feel that most of us, especially if you listen to this podcast, my guess is you have some penchant for ministry,
some draw,
right? That you want to fulfill. You want to fulfill this thing that God, this purpose that that you want to fulfill this purpose that God's put inside of you, right? Whatever that looks like. And if you stop doing stuff right now, you will feel very quickly like you're not accomplishing the purposes God's called you to.
If feelings of being lost, of not contributing,
frustration, of inadequacy, all that stuff. And I can tell you on a personal level, those times when in my life when I didn't feel like I was being used by God, I was growing and I was maturing and I was kind of churning and things were happening in my heart and in my life apart from ministry, right? And I wouldn't say it at the time. I would say I was very frustrated at the time, but I needed those things to get where I am now and to get where I'm going. I believe I needed those things. Taking a break from ministry is not taking a break from relationship.
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
I can take a break from me and my wife working in a business together. I can't take a break from my wife.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're in a relationship, and we can even take a break from the pressures of marriage, that the requirements that we've put in our
Yeah,
marriage.
there's
There are things we can do
this
for that.
weekend. I'm here.
Oh, right.
For you guys, because there's some stuff that I wanted to be here for you guys for. But it just worked out that earlier that afternoon, Sarah was like, "We have a 3-year-old who is entering the I don't want to nap, but I also don't want to be happy about things phase of life." So like she whines continuously, and my wife spends literally all day with her.
I'm in the opposite phase of life than that. I just thought about it.
Where you want to nap.
I want to nap, and I want to be happy about things.
Right, yeah. So, two spectrums.
Yep.
Decades apart, and she'll get there someday. But my wife, coincidentally, was like, I need a break from her. Like, and it just...
Those of you who have 3-year-olds know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it just
and
worked
those
out.
who don't and think that that's not going to happen to you, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's sweet. That's real sweet of you guys.
It's cute. It's adorable.
Yep.
It's adorable.
We all love you.
And it will be funny.
It'll be funny when it happens
When it
to
happens. But I mean, it just so happened that I was like, hey, like, this is an opportunity to go spend time with the Hogans, give you the break that you need.
Right.
But I'm still married to her. And
You're still married.
She's still a mom.
You still have a relationship.
And we still message.
So
She still misses
the
Hazel.
point. And the point I'm trying to make
Yeah.
out of that is that we associate active ministry with active relationship.
And that's
you got
the heart.
You got to start kind of
And that's the heart of what we want to talk about. Like, so this really isn't about Perry Noble.
like
More
everything
than-
else. It's not about what we're saying.
Right.
It's about something.
It's about this other thing
we haven't said yet.
that you just said.
It's a secret.
Right? That. So you'd said, and I wrote it down because it's. I think in general, this is true, but especially in those moments where we need growth and we need healing and we need understanding. But you said in our pre-show stuff, what he needs is church, not ministry.
Right.
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 And like what you need is church.
What we need.
What we need
Yeah.
is church, not ministry. So,
Right.
what did you mean?
What did I mean? So there are two things going on whenever you step into a Sunday morning experience, discipleship ministry, an evangelistic team, a missionary paradigm, whatever you step into in the church world, the churched world. You have this idea of ministry. I'm actively doing something for God, right? And then you have church, which is the people of God gathered together.
No, we don't mean church, a building.
Right. I don't
So-
mean first
Unless we say institutional
Pentecostal
church.
order of the Lutherans.
And you should know this
Evangelical.
on the Odd Show. Unless we say institutional or
Baptistry.
traditional or whatever, when we say church, we mean the gathered people of God.
Yeah, the gathered people of God. People that are
Ecclesia.
Ecclesia.
Ecclesia. I don't know. I'm not.
I should
Greek.
come up with a really funny way of saying it.
like
That'll,
Escalades.
that'll be
Shout out to
consistent.
our shift women.
That'll be
Escalades.
consistent with everybody else.
Yeah. Which Escalades, if you're not familiar, is the young adult way of saying Ecclesiastes.
Sure. If you've never read the Bible before, maybe that's in perusing. Anyway, so those are the two worlds you have. You have a world of I want to grow deeper into my relationship with Jesus, and I want to know who he is. And how do you know who he is? You read his word, you hear people talking about, and you find a body of believers that trust him, that believe in him. And then all those things combined kind of start becoming this representation of Jesus and this interaction with Jesus, right? So that's the church, the true church, right? In whatever format that falls out. If it falls out in Anglicanism or Lutheranism or Baptistry or whatever, it unfolds that way. That is church. And then there's ministry where I'm actively doing something because of that setting, Because
in the context of that
in
setting.
that context of that setting, I'm actively trying to either proclaim the gospel to those outside of that setting or trying to grow in the gospel in that setting. That's ministry. Ministry is the doing of that stuff.
Right.
And
so,
those of us.
So in Isaiah, when Isaiah's talking about ministering to God, right? Like, so there's that scripture where he's like, "I ministered to the Lord."
That's
Is it Isaiah?
no, that's Samuel.
I don't know the Bible.
That's the beginning of Samuel. It's
So,
Eli in the past.
I was ministering to
He would minister to the Lord day
to
and
the
night.
Lord day and night, right? So that's the doing of. The
He was
giving,
in the temple
giving.
serving underneath a priest. He was, doing offerings, and he was praying, and he was ministering, he was
Right.
giving.
It's the giving of.
Right.
Yeah. So, so that's what that is, right?
Right. And I feel like you can be good at one, or you can be good at both. You can be good at one. Usually, they're taught. At least they're not, even though it's not said out loud. They're taught that one of them is a detriment to the other. So
Right.
if you don't do ministry, you're not really growing, right? That's not true. Like
Right.
if you're
Like-
and they teach it that way,
And it's
so
often-
you're compelled to do the work there
And it's often put into that language, like your next step is to get involved here
and do
on
stuff.
Sunday
Yeah.
morning and usher.
But the thing is, if they don't teach well, that your heart needs to be falling in love with Jesus, that you need to start following him in all things. That's in the inner life first, then the outer life. If you're not kind of led that way, you're going to come away with the impression that doing this stuff is your service to God.
Right.
And my service to God is I'm bringing my heart to him, lifting it up to him, and then he's kind of taking it and making it what he wants it to be. And then out of the heart, these things happen. Out of a genuine, deep love with
Good
Jesus.
fruit.
Yeah.
Is born.
Yeah. And then it's not a contest of can I stabilize? Can I make this all work? Because that's what I came to in my life. Can I keep doing all this stuff and still love Jesus the same way? And I came to the conclusion that no, I can't. I can't keep doing all this stuff. That there's just this constant frustration and constant detraction from me growing closer to Jesus in my own personal life that I want other people to have. I wouldn't want somebody to have the cantankerous, frustrated, somewhat lonely experiences I was having trying to do ministry better.
Right.
I wanted to do better ministry.
And because you lack that body of people where there's support
Right.
and there's encouragement and there's a lifting up of Christ together and the Jesus in you ministering to the Jesus in me, and we're growing deeply and
All that
and
stuff.
accountability and submission,
Yeah.
because that's absent, it just becomes work, and that's where burnout comes from, right? And so this gets into kind of a different thing, but that's where I've kind of always, but more and more recently, had the problem with the idea of vocational pastoring. Call it vocational ministry.
Yes.
Call
I thought you were going to say something else.
Call it
Yeah,
vocational ministry, but pastoring is this different thing. You know, like there's this different thing that's happening there, and there are things you do in pastoring someone's heart.
I would just say most churches don't have pastors; they have organizational leaders.
Right.
They're good at organizing people or making leaders to organize people. Accurate.
Yes.
They're not good at pastoring.
That will make people mad that you said
Sorry,
that, sir.
not everyone. Some people are really good at pastoring and not good organizational leaders.
Right.
Also obvious.
But I mean, that's kind of always
You're really good at taking care of people's hearts. You should focus on that.
right. Don't try and lead anything.
And stop doing anything.
Right.
Stop doing everything.
Yeah, you messed up that budget. But so that's always kind of been my frustration. Like, is there such a thing as vocational pastorship? And I think if you kind of want some differentiation between that, the book, The Pastor, Eugene Peterson's memoir, is a great book for that, because he makes this delineation between the things he did in ministry and and his call to pastoring people's hearts, like caring for people's hearts. And it was really that book that I was just like, oh yeah, this is what I've been
pastoring is
trying.
a thing. Yeah.
This is what I've been trying to get at. Like, so just this differentiation between people associating your worth and your closeness to God with the stuff that you do in this organization. And whether it's a church on Sunday morning or a homeless shelter or a mission set, like a missionary organization or whatever, the work that you do is not the relationship that you have with Jesus.
Right. And so the relationship with Jesus is more important.
Right.
And the community of believers around you that are encouraging that are more important. And I don't know Perry Noble. I don't know him at all. And I don't know who he has around him. Right. I would hope that people around him are encouraging in his most holy faith, as Paul says, and that out of that is coming this desire to fulfill the call of God to do ministry. What I'm afraid, and what it looks like on the surface without me knowing him at all, is that he has a burning desire to do ministry and not doing, after you do it, and you, especially if you do it well and successfully, it's hard to disconnect from it and say, okay, maybe God wants something more or something different or something alternate than this. And then we tend to go with what we're good at and what people tell us we're good at, as opposed to what God says we should do.
And I would say, too, the article that I read had a video from a local news station where he was invited to speak at this small church that was doing revival stuff or something. He was the last speaker in a set of, to kind of close out their revival. You invite revival? I don't know.
Sure.
So
revivals happen.
Right. No.
Scheduled.
But that, I mean, like we schedule, right? So, but I mean, like it's that there's just based on the response. So again, I'm prefacing what I'm about to say based on the response of the people that were there listening to him speak, and how like the comments like, I love listening to Pastor Perry speak, and it's just great to have him here with us. And like, I would guess that there are people around him that I would hope that they're there to encourage his most holy faith, right? But I would guess that there are people around him that know that he's good at what he does, and that on some selfish level, they're like, no, we need you to lead a church. Like, we need to be a part of this thing that you're going to lead. And there's probably not a lot of people telling him, being like, hey, man, you think this is a good time for that? Like, you think that maybe you slow down? Like, maybe we just kind of sit at the feet of Jesus instead of working?
And that comes back to kind of this other broad topic of God did not call you to build a church or build a body of believers or build a gathering for people. God called you to make disciples. And out of that's going to come a body of believers in a gathering and a purposed meeting, or a sacred assembly. Is that, that's where that's going to get to. And how well are you building or making disciples if your own heart is kind of in this place that needs to be restored,
right? That
needs to constantly be drawing closer to restoration as opposed to closer to building something.
Right.
I don't have to build it. I mean, I should be building my faith. That's what I should be building. So anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah, and in that, like, just to be clear, like, the hope is like again, don't know Pastor Perry Noble personally. I mean, like, I've heard him speak. I know people that know him. I hope that like, my heart breaks for the divorce.
Any marriage that falls apart, that's heartbreaking.
And I hope that things progress well for him, that there is healing, there is restoration, there is.
And who's to say that there wasn't a fast track to
right? Yeah, like maybe
Alcohol
there was.
Anonymous is awesome,
right.
And maybe some counseling and maybe all that stuff just happened within 8 months,
right? And it's possible.
I've never heard of it happening, but
it doesn't
mean
it doesn't look possible. Like it's happening that way, maybe. But
I'm just saying I don't know anything about the church world, but I know a lot about that world. Like, that's
right. So anyway,
recovery is a little bit more difficult than that. Typically,
yeah. So that's that. We'd love to know your opinion on it. I mean, do you think that Pastor Perry Noble, or just anyone, like, is a year with
A pending divorce.
Yeah, a pending divorce, alcoholism, like that stuff, like these
Being-
heavy
Yeah,
things.
being stripped of your pastorate.
Yeah, from some, like, is that enough time to heal? Is that enough time to recoup and restore and to find?
Fully understanding God can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how long Paul took before, I don't know how long Paul took before he was like, yeah, I got some people killed. That's not me anymore.
Right.
Maybe that was an overnight thing. He was like, oh, I feel bad about that.
Right.
Not going to do that again.
Could have been the thorn that.
It could be.
I mean, there's a lot of. Anyway,
Yeah.
So there's that. So yeah, that's the episode. Hey, we kept it under 45 minutes.
Nice.
That's awesome.
There'll be some good stuff in there, I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So love to hear your thoughts on it. And that's it. Yeah.
Stay out.
Stay on.
Thanks for checking out The Odd Show. You can follow Bruce on Twitter at BPags2 and Thomas at BlenderZen. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes and share us with your friends. Until next time, stay odd.